I'm in a pickle, and it's all for you. Today is one of my most favorite days at the cottage. I get to make bread and butter pickles. Now, I'm all for heading to my favorite grocery store and picking up a jar of prepared pickles, but every once in a while you want that real, authentic, homemade, off-the-charts flavor. It's in this pot right here, and I'm going to show you how to can and prepare your own bread and butter pickles. If you've never canned before, head to weekend@thecottage.com and look for our post on how to can. It's important we always do this safely, and that one article goes through all the tips you'll need to do this properly. But this recipe actually started yesterday. Let me walk through what I did. I start by taking curvy cucumbers. I cut off the top and the end, and then I took a knife and I started to slice them into 1/4-inch pieces. And then I remembered that I was doing 6 pounds of cucumber, so I took out my mandolin and I processed things very quickly. Once the cucumbers were sliced, I placed them into a bowl. I had 2 white onions, they're sweet, cut them in half and then cut them into strips, place them in with the cucumbers, toss them by hand. Now you need pickling salt. Now we need 1/3 cup of pickling salt. I sprinkled it on top of the cucumber and onions and then tossed it together by hand. Here's a really interesting trick. You take ice and you cover the top of the cucumbers and onions with ice. It goes into the fridge overnight. And it's kind of an interesting concept. The ice slowly melts, the liquid becomes very salty, the cucumbers and onions soak up the salty liquid, but they also stay kind of crisp because of the coldness of the ice. Now this morning, I start by rinsing off those cucumbers. I did it 3 times, back and forth, rinsing off that salty liquid. I simply placed it to a colander. You're probably wondering what all this noise is about. Well, in this pot, I have a small metal rack. I placed that into the bottom of the pot, and then I filled it with distilled water. I then need to sterilize our canning jars, and this is such an important step. My jars were washed, I let them dry, and then I placed them into this pot of boiling water. They need to boil for 10 minutes. Something else I did at the same time, I added my ladle, I added my funnel that I'll need to put the cucumbers into the jars, and I also added a rochette, because when we transfer the cucumber, I'm going to press down to get rid of all of the water. So all of these things are sterilized now in this pot. We need to create a broth for those cucumbers to cook in. I have 3 cups of pickling vinegar, I have 4 cups of granulated sugar, and then an assortment of very flavorful spices. We have 2 tablespoons of mustard seed, 1 tablespoon celery seed, a teaspoon of black peppercorns, 2 teaspoons of coriander, and then you need this classic spice combo that always works in bread and butter pickles. I have 1/2 teaspoon of cloves, and then 1.5 teaspoons of turmeric. I place the turmeric and the cloves into a small bowl, add a little bit of water, create a paste, and it seems to dissolve better in the liquid. That liquid then went into this pot. I went to stovetop, bring it to a boil. And you'll get a sense of the smell now. It's vinegary, sugary, and spicy. As soon as it comes to a boil, we add the sliced pickle and onion and stir it up, and again we're waiting for a boil. Once the pickles start boiling, they boil for 1 minute, take them off the stove, and we place them here. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to take the bottles out of the container. I'll place them here and we'll finish off. Also notice that I have my measuring cup, and in the measuring cup are all of the lids and rings that I'll need to adjust on the top of the jars. I filled this with boiling water, and now this too is sterilized. Hopefully this is all going to make sense as you see me do the final process. If you need another reference, the full story, lots of ideas and directions on how to do this is up at weekend@thecottage.com. Let me get the bottles out of the hot water, I'll place them here, and we'll do final steps on assembling bread and butter pickles. I took the jars out of the hot liquid. They're very hot, and always use tongs. If you need to use an oven mitt, just go slow through this process, no need to rush. I have the first jar, I'm going to place it onto the board. This is my sterilized funnel, and the funnel is such a great tool because you place it on top of the jar, and then the pickles will go in without making a mess. I have my ladle, which is sterilized, and then I'm going to start by ladling in some of our prepared pickle mixture. Now another thing just to keep in mind as you're doing this, this is still going because once we finish this, I've got to boil these for an additional 10 minutes to finish the whole canning process. So it's noisy, it's hot, it's exciting, and making pickles is really a rewarding experience. I mean, again, yeah, you can go out and buy some already prepared, but I think that something about this process where it just tastes so much better. I have my little brochette and I'm just pushing down to make sure that the pickles are all the way down. Kind of play around with it. I'm going to add a few more. Don't forget, these make wonderful gifts, so you can't be stingy. Add a few more pickles, and then when you take off the lid, you'll see it's coming up about 1/4 inch from the top, which is what we want. I would then take the funnel, place it to the side. I'm going to take a handy little device, which is actually a magnet wand. I'm taking a sterilized cap, place it down on top. We take our ring, again sterilized, we place it on top, and the expression that canners usually use is finger tight. So it's important at this stage that the ring go on, but you don't tighten it too much, just like that. Ultimately we'll be transferring it to the water bath. A couple of additional things, this is very hot. The bottle is hot, the pickles themselves are very hot. So again, when you're processing, just move things quickly to the side, use oven mitts or small dish towels when you're doing this if you're a bit nervous. But I think if you go step by step, you'll have great success. Let me finish these jars, we'll place them in to finish the canning process. Everything is done before you know it. There's a very important moment in this process where the suction is created as the ingredients to the jar cools. The suction on top of each of the canning lids constricts, and you'll hear the jars go pop, which is your sign that the process has worked correctly. We ended up 6 pounds of Kirby cucumbers with onion, yielded 6 jars, but it also yielded a 7th jar that wasn't quite full. So this is the jar that's going into my fridge. I can guarantee you I'll be eating some of these tonight with dinner. One final reminder, just go slowly with the process. The Story at Weekend at the Cottage has all of the details. We go step by step. All you have to do is take the first step, and pretty soon you'll be an expert canner preparing something fabulous like bread and butter pickles. Looking to create other fabulous things? Just head to weekendatthecottage.com. Please look for us on our dedicated YouTube channel, and then finally, why not keep the conversation going? Hang out with the incredible Carol Bogazzi on all of our dedicated social media networks. Pinterest, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter. Don't forget to come back. Don't forget to tell all your friends about us. The more the merrier, especially when we're always celebrating good food, good friends, and good times. Hope to see you again. Bye-bye.